truly a shale country native. Before moving to XTO's Pittsburgh office, Karen was a media relations advisor for ExxonMobil in Dallas, Texas. And prior to joining ExxonMobil, Karen worked for the American Petroleum Institute in Washington, D.C., but the bulk of her career was spent as a journalist. Karen's husband, Steve, is a middle school teacher, and they have a 12-year-old son and a 6-year-old daughter. Karen Matusek.
Hi, thank you for coming here on, I'm sure it was a busy pre-holiday schedule that y'all have. It's been a pleasure for me to come here. I think since last year I've been coming up here many times to the Binghamton area, and I always drive here from Pittsburgh, 6.5-hour drive. And I told Karen and Greg and some of the others the reason that I drive to this area is because it reminds me a lot of the place I grew up, and people remind me a lot of my folks, the folks that I grew up with. I grew up in a small town in eastern Ohio on a farm. I'm a granddaughter of Polish immigrants that worked in the coal mines since they were about 14 years old. First generation college graduate, and like many of my college schoolmates in the late 1980s, we had to leave home to get a job. You know, so I had a job that took me all around the world, and never in a million years did I think that a job in the oil and gas industry would bring me back home. But thanks to the shale revolution, it did just that. And a number of the colleagues that I have working at XTO Energy in Pittsburgh are folks from Ohio and New York and West Virginia and Pennsylvania that were able to come back home because of the shale operations. And that's something I'd like to see happen here in the southern tier. I know you guys also have a lot of your young folks having to move away from home to get jobs. And so hopefully, you know, in the not too distant future, we'll be able to put New Yorkers back to work here at home. And what I hope to do tonight is also tell you a little bit about XTO Energy and ExxonMobil and how we can work together to put New Yorkers back to work and give some of the economic benefits that I've seen happening in small towns in Ohio and where we can see throughout Pennsylvania and West Virginia and have it happen here for New Yorkers. And then afterwards, I know you're going to all have some questions and concerns you would like to express, so we're all going to talk to those after we're done. So now, talk to you a little bit about what I'm going to talk to you tonight. First, why shale is important to our nation, our region, our state, our colleagues' economic and energy security. The positive economic impacts that shale development, responsibly and safely developed, can have for New York State in general and for the southern tier in particular. XTO Energy and ExxonMobil's operational experience and how safety and responsible operations is number one importance for our company, and how we can work together as an industry and with the community on raising the bar on safe and responsible development. But first I'd like to talk to you about just this phenomenon that you've seen and read about in Marcellus Shale, and not just the Marcellus Shale, but other shale developments throughout the country, and what it's meant, how it's really been a game changer for our country. Thanks to technological advances, hydraulic fracturing is a process that's been going on since the late 1940s. What's happened is the pioneers in the industry field have found a way to marry or to combine hydraulic fracturing with horizontal drilling to enable us to develop and to get oil and gas out of what before was not economically or technologically possible. And I would also like to talk to you about why my company, XTO and ExxonMobil, have been investing heavily, billions and billions of dollars, to bring this shale development to market. And we see, even in the face of lower prices, why we were determined to continue our investment in this. This is a big energy picture. Global gas demand we see rising throughout the world through 2030, mainly as a result of electricity demand. When you think that more than a billion people in the world have no access to electricity, and as that comes on, the demand, especially in India and China, that is going to contribute further to global gas demand growing up. The demand for natural gas and electricity sector is going to rise by more than 75% through 2030, especially in the developing world. And thanks to this domestic energy revolution, we're now at our highest production level since 1973. We have moved from concerns of supply scarcity. As recently as 2003, the federal government was predicting that we were going to have to import natural gas. And now we're talking about one day being able to export natural gas. And now we have questions about doing it right. And we see the big role for shale and unconventional gas. When you look at forecasts now and compared to what they were in 2000, the federal government has doubled what they saw for the role of unconventional natural gas. By 2020, unconventional natural gas would make 75% of gas production in this country. However, I'd be remiss not to mention that prices are low, mainly because of the slowing economy and also because of the booming success and development of shale gas. Marcellus production alone, I saw a figure yesterday that it has gone up 72% just in 1 year. And that's because of all the activity mainly in Pennsylvania, but also in West Virginia and some in Ohio. But we've been here before in the 1980s and the late 1990s. This is something common to commodity cycles. And I just want to say that XTO and ExxonMobil was committed to staying the course because we have a long-term commitment to developing clean burning natural gas. And now I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the economic benefits. As I say, I am a native Ohio, and I have seen firsthand the economic benefits that can bring a small town that's thought it's seen its better days. The benefits go well beyond the oil and gas industry. So here in New York, for example, we have an ad valorem tax, and that's going to be bringing money into schools, towns, and communities where gas is being produced. But it's not just about that, the tax revenue, it's also about jobs. According to the Manhattan Institute study, 90,000 jobs could be created by 2020 if gas was allowed to be developed here, shale gas. 11.4 billion in economic output and 1.4 billion in state and local taxes. And it also would mean well-paying jobs for local residents. I know a lot is said about these jobs are all going to folks from Texas and Louisiana. Well, I can tell you that of the 300 people that we employ in Marcellus Shale just right now, that hardly any of them are not from the region. And in general, 70 to 80% of the crews in Pennsylvania are from Pennsylvania or the neighboring states of West Virginia, Ohio, and some in New York. And those jobs are not just for the folks that are working on the rigs. There's a knock-on job creation. This hotel, for example, every time I come here, there are about 40 or 50 rooms, I think the managers told me, taken up by folks working on the oil and gas rigs in Pennsylvania. Because there's so many rooms, there's not enough rooms in those hotels there in Lycoming and Bradford County, in some of those areas. And you're also seeing job creation in restaurants, shops, car dealers, and a host of other industries. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about Exxon and XTO Energy. XTO Energy was purchased by ExxonMobil in 2009. And ExxonMobil saw the growing role that shale gas development would have, and so they saw that XTO Energy, before ExxonMobil purchased XTO Energy, this is something that I never realized, it was the #1 natural gas producer in this country, but a lot of you probably never heard of XTO Energy, maybe before ExxonMobil bought it. And so ExxonMobil was very keen to tap into that technological know-how. And together with ExxonMobil's operational expertise and focus on safety and operational excellence, I'm sure all of you have heard of an unfortunate incident called the Exxon Valdez. Well, if there was one silver lining out of the Exxon Valdez incident, is that ExxonMobil takes almost an obsessive look at safety and operational excellence. We have what we call our OIM system, Operational Integrity Management System, that looks at safety, health, security, environment, and social risk. Because for ExxonMobil, no job is worth doing if not done safely. And when I first joined ExxonMobil, I was told about a platform that ExxonMobil was part of in the Deepwater offshore in Gulf of Mexico. ExxonMobil put $185 million into that rig, to that platform. And when our CEO looked at all the data and decided that this could not be developed safely due to where it was, how deep it was in the offshore position, we abandoned that. So the $185 million because of safety. And that's just say that we don't take anything like that lightly. We are currently, as you can see, by far the largest natural gas producer in this country. Chesapeake, I think, is second, and it goes on down. We are the largest, but we're never the dominant player in the region because we like to take a long-range view of how we operate. So in order to have operational flexibility and the ability to manage our growth, We never rush into a play with a lot of rigs, and we don't rush out. Even with the low gas prices, you aren't seeing us moving rigs out or laying people off anywhere that we are. In Marcellus region, we have the Marcellus region is 54,000 square miles and resources that are 9,000 feet below the Earth's surface. It's the largest source of recoverable natural gas in the United States, and 1/4 of the nation's natural gas is coming from this region. And XTO Energy and ExxonMobil are, we have holdings in every shale play in the country. From North Dakota, you've probably heard of the Bakken Shale, all the way to the Marcellus. The Marcellus is probably in the Utica Shale in Ohio and in Pennsylvania. We have Utica Shale acreage. Is probably one of our most important areas, and our president has said that we hope to double our footprint in the Marcellus Shale within the next 10 years. In New York, that's all. In New York, we have 50,000 acres currently leasehold. We stopped signing leases because of all the delays on the regulations, but hopefully, fingers crossed, in the not too distant future, we'll be able to look to sign more leases. But we have currently 50,000 acres under leasehold in Broome and Delaware County. We're also subject to the Delaware River Basin Commission regulations, so even once, fingers crossed, that the regs are lifted here, we'll still have to wait until the RDC regulations come out. We are also in northeast Pennsylvania, southeast west Pennsylvania, in eastern Ohio, and in West Virginia. And a lot of our activity next year is going to center on midstream, which is pipelines, compressor stations, cryogenic plants. And the good news for that is that creates a lot of jobs. In Pennsylvania, for example, we're putting a cryogenic plant, which is a plant that's needed to separate natural gas liquids. You've probably heard of ethane and some of the liquids that are going into chemical plants. We need to build that plant to separate those liquids from the stream. And those are a lot of jobs, and I'm proud to say that we picked a Western Pennsylvania contractor, 100% IBEW Union Brothers doing that construction. And so that's where a lot of the jobs are going to be for people that aren't going to be necessarily working in the oil and gas rigs, but for construction workers and folks. And that also creates a number of permanent jobs. But we understand for this growth to continue and be successful, we must get it done correctly. We must get it done right. And therefore, we must be held to the highest operational standards. And that means that from the beginning, we need to have sound, well-designed construction and risk management through to production and then taking the gas to market. ExxonMobil supports and encourages fact-based and science-based regulations and performance and enforcement. Unfortunately, what we see with the New York draft regs, which are not unfortunate, but they're probably going to go down as the most onerous in the United States. But we fear that some of them can limit activity because of their costly and burdensome nature. We think that some of them go beyond what's needed to protect the environment. In fact, some of them might actually have a counterproductive when it comes to some of the environmental footprint. But we recognize that we are going to be judged collectively as an industry. So it's important to work together and raise the bar on responsible operations. And we do this through collaboration, trade associations. XTO and ExxonMobil are a member of the American Petroleum Institute, the New York State Petroleum Council, the Independent Oil and Gas Association of New York, the Marcellus Shale Coalition. And a lot of what we get from these is sharing lessons learned and forums on best management practices, because we recognize that our industry is going to be judged by the lowest operator. So it's important for us to all raise the bar. Big members to share their experiences like we have seen on all the areas where we've been drilling. And some of the things that we've been doing in Pennsylvania and that we hope to be able to do here one day is collaboration. For example, we know that a concern is on the impact on drinking water. So in Pennsylvania, we have worked with the Marcellus Shale Coalition on a pre-drilling water testing database, so that in Pennsylvania there are no regulations on how to do a water well. So what we're doing is testing the water before we drill, putting this on a database housed by a university in Pennsylvania. And so then you as a landowner, these folks are seeing water quality testing on their water for the first time ever. So we're providing that for them on this database. We're also working together on frac focus, which on a well-by-well basis provides all the ingredients and additives we put in fracturing fluids. And we're also working together on recommended practices and standards. American Petroleum Institute has a long history of Coalition and my company and 11 other big companies have worked together on Appalachian Shale recommended practices, because what happens is in each region, the geology and some of the local conditions differ, so we thought it was important to have it on a regional basis. And last but not least, and this is probably the most fun of my job, is working with the local communities. And this is something we find to be very, very important. We want to be a valued community partner. We live in the community, we work in the community. It's in no one's interest, especially ours, to do anything that would be detrimental to the community. And so we think it's important to engage and listen, respond, and respect local communities. It's a part of an ongoing dialogue. In Pennsylvania, what we do when we go into a township for the first time is we have an open house where we invite all members of the community, and we have maybe 6 or 7 stations with all of our experts, folks on water use, the head of our operation, our vice president of engineering, everyone, the folks that work on the road. Everyone's there to answer questions about everything. We have maps of our facilities. We will take folks out on site tours. We then set up a community advisory panel of opinion leaders, elected officials, but not just elected officials, clergy members, educators, PTA. Whoever wants to meet regularly with us to discuss ways that we can improve our operations, things that we can do to help them in the community. We also think it's important to hear what's important to your community when we come in to make investments. What are the important activities and organizations, be it Boy Scouts, 4-H, and that's a popular one for me. We do a lot with the local county fairs. I used to show sheep and cattle in the county fair in Harrison County, Ohio, and I got to go back and bid on the grand champion goats and things like that. So it just reminded me of things that I remember from the community that are so important. And I think that's important for an industry to actually invest in what is important in the community. And so hopefully one day we'll be having some of these forums up here. XTO and ExxonMobil look forward to one day being able to work together here in the southern tier and work on ways that we can develop the resources you have here safely and responsibly for the benefit of